The early signs of burnout it's very subtle, and everyone is busy these days. It is about what really lights you up and what you enjoy doing, what you're really good at. It's often by not saying no to the things that we don't want to do and saying yes to things even though our whole body tells us, ooh, don't really want to do that. We tend to work a lot better when we're in our flow. I think everyone has a story out there when you wanted to do something different when you grow up. You cannot remember what normal was or that it was ever different. Where are you not being honest with yourself? Where you need to put boundaries in place and have the courage to say no. I couldn't possibly say no to something when the company's under pressure is important. And we should do this actually more frequently as part of our goal setting. If I can prevent women at a younger age going down the same rabbit hole, then that is my purpose fulfilled in life. You have to have a willingness to go out and do you, screw up and get back up. If you think you can't change, what is the cost of not changing? It's never too late to tap into that, and whether you're 30, 40, 50 or older, you can change and reframe what you carry. You can get to a place where you barely recognize the old version of yourself. You can be all of who you are. You can do whatever you want. Go after your dreams unapologetically. The champion doesn't put me on a pedestal or sets me apart from others.
Have you ever hit rock bottom only to discover that it's the perfect launching pad for transformative journey? Join us today as we uncover the essential steps to show up fully in your life, leadership, and the truth. Welcome to the Champion Mindset Collective podcast. I'm grateful that you're here watching or listening to this episode. Would love for you to share this episode with your friends, your family, and your workmates so we can get this podcast out to the greater world. Today, I'm joined by Tina K. Kailea, and an award-winning embodiment coach and best-selling author of Corporate Rewilding. After facing challenges, and including burnout and 5 miscarriages, you walked away from a successful yet draining corporate career to redefine success in your own terms. You now empower women globally to the Realigning framework and helping them break free from burnout and to reconnect with them true selves and lead authenticity and alignment. If you've ever felt like you're going through the motions and you're craving something more, this conversation is for you. Welcome, Tina, to the Champion Mindset Collective podcast.
Thank you for having me. Always a pleasure. My favorite topic,
it's
preventing women from burning out.
Yeah, I think men need a lot of help there as well.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you work with men, by the way?
On a very rare occasions, I do.
Oh, okay. So Tina, before we go into some questions, I'd really like to get some context on your life in terms of your childhood. Like, where did you come from? How did you grow up? And what were some challenges that you might have faced? And some of the highlights, and maybe not the highlights, the lowlights.
And a bit of a mix.
Yeah, because we all go through transitions in our life, right?
Yes, we do.
And so tell us a little bit about that.
I came to New Zealand 26 years ago, so it seems a lifetime ago. And I think my upbringing has been quite traditional, and it's been in a small village, a rural area. So I had lots of great memories. I used to ride horses wild in the forest and never quite conformed with stuff. And when I moved to New Zealand, I felt like there was more freedom purely because there wasn't the same conditioning and expectations on what you're meant to be doing in your 20s and your 30s. And that felt really exciting and exhilarating. And I have to be honest, I struggled with the accent probably the most. And if you're not a native Kiwi, you may be able to relate to that. I thought I spoke pretty good English until I got here. So the first few years was a lot harder than I thought. It wasn't just the culture, it was the weather. And not being able to fully articulate or being funny or witty. I didn't have the vocabulary, and Kiwis tend to speak really fast, and the accent took quite a few years to master. So I'm married to a Tongan. That's another story for another podcast. Speaking of cultural differences, and I never really felt the urge to go back to Germany. Right. And obviously with family and friends, they couldn't understand in the beginning why I wanted to stay down here. And it was through my career where I really saw the differences. Opportunities in New Zealand are a lot more broad for women of childbearing age, which I was at that time. And I really loved the fact that I could take up pretty much anything that I wanted. We have a very entrepreneurial mindset in New Zealand, and you're not necessarily, oh, you've done this at school and you studied that, so you're in that box and in that railway line for the rest of your life. And Germany felt a little bit like that at the time. So that's a little bit about how I ended up in New Zealand.
Yeah, but what about as a little girl, like in Germany? What was that like?
I found it, I guess, I had a wild childhood, like I said. I've never been somebody who plays inside. We used to roam the village and on a bike and without phones, and you come back when it gets dark at night.
Yeah.
I'm a horse lover. I always loved riding and was quite fortunate to go outside. So I think eventually they rein you in, they leave you that freedom when you are younger. Eventually there are some expectations which I find for girls are a lot more restrictive than for boys. We get told to be nice, to not speak up, to not ruffle feathers, be the nice girl, and that carries through. And I'm glad I grew up without social media when I was a teenager. So the amount of pressure that comes from society on women and girls is just mind-blowing.
Yeah.
And I think I'm very lucky that I didn't have that. And in having said that, you still taken on some stories that weren't yours in terms of how you showed up and what you internalized.
Yeah.
So that was not always easy, and I never felt like I fit in. And while that is often a teenage byproduct, I guess, for most of them, it was more than finding my identity. It was purely, I don't belong here, I don't fit, and I don't want to do this life the way it's dictated to me. And my mum would attest to that I always put my head down and went straight with my head through the wall, which caused friction at school and a few other places. But here I am, and it sort of amplifies the older you get, I find, which is where the wild executive and the unapologetic wild woman title comes from.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
What an upbringing you've had there.
Yes.
And a journey in life. So tell us a little bit about understanding burnout. What are the early signs of burnout and that you experienced in your life during your corporate career?
I think burnout has become a bit of a cliche word. And for those of you out there, when you think of burnout, you probably think you have a lot of work hours in the week and you've got stress at work. But I always challenge people to go, where are you participating in burnout? And people go, what do you mean I'm participating in it? Because it's very much an internal choice. And before anyone gets their arms up in the air, it is a combination of lots of things. So the early signs of burnout is, it's very subtle. And everyone is busy these days. We all have a million things to do, and it's not what time management system you use or how you structure your week. It is about what really lights you up and what you enjoy doing, what you're really good at, and what is some of the stuff that you should technically be delegating. Now, at work, in a leadership position, that seems to be a lot easier than our private lives. But I challenge a lot of people to look at it in a holistic way, to understand how burnout shows up in their life, because it's often by not saying no to the things that we don't want to do, and saying yes to things even though our whole body tells us, ooh, don't really want to do that. And it's not something you can do all the time, like there's family engagements and certain other things that just have to happen. But when it comes to more of the fundamental things, we tend to work a lot better when we're in our flow. And this is where women are often stuck in the doing. And I unpack a lot of the different elements of burnout for people to really grasp that it's not a 60-hour work week or a busy job or a busy life. It is, are you actually honestly following the career that lights you up, that is really your zone of genius? Or is it something that was handed to you as a child, like dad's a lawyer and grandfather was a lawyer, so you're going to law school without question? There's a lot of people, and women in particular, who come to it middle of a really successful career, and then when I go work with them, they go, wow, I actually hate being a lawyer. I wanted to do equestrian therapy or something similar. And I think everyone has a story out there when you wanted to do something different when you grow up. And I think that also changes with seasons in your life, and you're not stuck picking something when you're 14 at a career expo and then you just carry through happily ever after.
What are some of the common symptoms and the reasons for burnout?
Sleeplessness.
Yeah.
When you wake up in the middle of the night with a panicked feeling like, and the first thing you think about, oh shit, I forgot to send this email, or what is my boss going to do tomorrow? It is very quickly paired with anxiety, where we are constantly in a mode of panic. And also when you wake up without feeling rested.
Yeah.
Even though you had a good sleep, or you perceive that to be a good sleep just because you've been out for 6 hours, you wake up in the morning and you feel like nothing gives you a spring in your step, and you feel drained on a very, very physical level. That's probably the simplest thing, and it's not necessarily aging or busy lifestyle. It is an actual physical domino effect that comes into effect once you ignore the early signs, because it becomes your status quo.
Yeah.
And that's very dangerous, because you cannot remember what normal was, or that it was ever different. And the best example I always liken it to, and some people might have heard that, is you're a frog in a pot of water on the stove, and when someone turns the heat on and the water starts getting hotter and hotter, instead of just jumping out, you get used to the temperature increase because it's so subtle and so over a length of time, instead of just jumping out. And then you can't actually remember. It's so simple, you just jump out of the pot. Problem solved. Instead, you stay in there and you endure temperature rise after temperature rise before that pot becomes your reality.
Yeah, and it just becomes your new normal, right?
Yes.
And you can't spring back to where you used to be.
Yeah.
And life, like a lot of people talk about balance in life, right? But there is no balance, right? I would say it's more harmony in life. What are your thoughts on that?
Balance is a cliche.
Yeah.
And one that is that companies often like to tick off to say, oh yeah, we've done our things, we do the wellness stuff.
Work-life balance, yeah.
Work-life balance doesn't exist. It's what you make it.
Yeah.
And this is the interesting part about participating in burnout. Where are you not being honest with yourself, where you need to put boundaries in place and have the courage to say no? And this is something that we all heard that no is a full sentence. But how many of us actually feel comfortable saying it? Because we then become difficult, a bit raspy perhaps, challenging, all these things at work. And we often feel, and this was my experience, I couldn't possibly say no to something when the company's under pressure, the economy is turned upside down. You really need the job, and you don't want to lose your job. So you feel like by not agreeing to everything, you're making yourself a target for being first off the chopping block when it gets restructured or redundancies roll in. And I think that is a fear that we then inherit as the status quo and something that we hold constantly. And it's not a fun place to be in fear all the time.
No, and look, just mentioning redundancies and restructuring, I've been through 24 restructures and 4 redundancies, and I can completely relate to that.
Yeah.
Every time that happened, I was like in fear and stress. There were times where I didn't even feel like I was stressed, but my body was obviously keeping the score.
Yeah.
Right, and it came to a point where I had to just actually, for me personally, it was like I came to a realization that I wasn't meant to be an employee anymore.
Yeah.
And work in someone else's business. And it only took me 24 restructures and 4 redundancies to figure that out.
Like they say, the universe often repeats the lesson until you get the message.
Exactly, a sucker for punishment there.
I know. I resonate with it, because you think it's the worst case scenario, but there is a silver lining when you see sometimes life gets rearranged for you, not necessarily to punish you, but to show you a different way. And pressure makes diamonds. And it's true, and it doesn't have to be stressful.
No. And my last experience was going into a council here, like Auckland Council, and 3 months later I got made redundant. And I was like, universe, what's going on? Why,
Yeah.
And it was interesting because like I came to the realization that I'm not meant to be in corporate world anymore. I've outgrown that, and if I keep going into a job, then I'm going to keep getting the same result. And even more so now with the way things are changing with AI, right? A lot of companies are now looking at leveraging AI and so on. So I had to kind of like pivot and go, okay, what do I do now? And then I had to sort of go back and go, what am I passionate about? What am I really good at? What are some problems that I can solve? And then that's when I realized that, okay, hey, it's time for me to start my own business and work in my own business. So, but a lot of people don't come to that conclusion, do they?
It's taken me a few rounds, not quite as many as you, but I have to understand that the pace and the structuring of being in a corporate job, aka you're going somewhere, you're commuting, you're sitting in an office for 9 to 5, that was not something that I was actually ever designed to do. I also learned a lot about, and I mean, for those in corporate, we all heard about DISC and Gallup Strength Report and those things. I work in my business with something called Human Design and Gene Keys, which looks more at the holistic and spiritual thing. And the fact that I'm sitting here fully woo-woo and embodied took me a while, because when I first realized I hung up my corporate title, I had an identity crisis. I didn't know who I was, because when someone said, "What do you do?" I go, right, I don't actually know. So that is why my subtitle is called A Journey Back to Self, because you realize that you are a different being and you become more authentically yourself as time goes on. And for me, I hold safe space, and I do this in the way I coach, in the way I work, and in the way I facilitate retreats and in-person workshops. That to me, with that old German rigid upbringing, in my mind it was like, that's not a job description. What does that mean? I had to be really comfortable with that is my superpower. And it does come out in various ways, and it doesn't make me not a business-minded person. I just learned to rephrase. So part of my framework is to redefine what is success to you, and what does it look like? Where does that come from? And is it something that is inherently coming from within, or is it something that was handed to you?
Yeah.
And that's a fascinating journey, because often people have been so busy for decades, which was the same for me, that they haven't actually asked themselves that question. And brutal honesty and really redefining what do you want to do, like you said, is important. And we should do this actually more frequently as part of our goal setting, if I want to use a corporate terminology.
That's right. You know, a lot of people set their identity to their job or what they do, but really that's not who we are.
No, we're multidimensional, and that's where the fun starts.
Yeah, and it was actually early this year that I was on the Tony Robbins Summit. It was those free events that he did.
Yep.
And one of the days he talked about identity. And I'm sitting there and I'm going, okay, I still got this identity of an employee. I've got to shift this identity from employee to business owner, because I'm no longer an employee. And even if I went to Work and Income, WINS, they kept telling me, you got to go and get a job. And I'm like, no, I don't want a job. I want to start my business. And it was interesting. I got so frustrated with them, I just told them, look, go away, right? And I shifted my identity to a business owner and a founder of my company, and everything changed.
Fascinating.
Everything changed. And now, like, I don't chase anything. I don't chase money. I don't chase work. Money and work will come to me, because what I do is I align myself with the future and bring that to me.
Yeah.
And I let that chase me.
That was for me the hardest shift to make in my business, and those listening in, they will have the same resistance that I had when I first tried to entertain that thought that life can be vastly different without having to worry, and getting rid of your scarcity mindset and the money mindset, like money doesn't grow on trees, there's not an infinite amount. Those were stories that were given to me when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I come from 2 generations of post-war Germany. Sacrifice, hard work, and working yourself into the ground was shown and modeled to me and handed to me. And one of the big catalysts was when my father passed away from cancer. After having worked his whole life, having his own business, I don't ever, unless we've had the 2 weeks holiday, which is what Germans tend to do, there wasn't a time when I really remember him being relaxed. And what did he have to show for? He passed away at a reasonably young age, in his mid-60s. There wasn't any joy from what I could tell. And I go, no, I moved to New Zealand because I wanted to be different, and I realized there was a lot of, I guess, uncovering my own truth, why I felt the urge to come down here. And I realized there was a realignment that life did for me, because I would have not done half of the things would I have stayed back in that village, back in that environment. And it's not coming from a place of arrogance. It comes from a place of deeply understanding what makes me tick. And some people think that's a bit, over the top or arrogant or what's the word for it? I don't know. It eludes me, but I liken it as being so grounded in who you are. I don't have to defend that to anybody either. I just show up. And if I'm too much or too loud or too this or too that, then so be it. I'm happy to be that, to be like that. It's taken me 51 years to get here. No one can really ruffle me to the point where I fall to pieces. And that's a good thing. And I guess age is a thing, but if I can prevent women at a younger age going down the same rabbit hole, then that is my purpose fulfilled in life.
Yeah, it's learning to be that resilient, right? And be able to, and like, especially in the corporate world, I mean, that's what I've done for 30 years. But what I noticed is that you're always trying to seek validation. You always, and people will tell you that you're too loud and you shut up and you shouldn't talk to. And I think that happened to me so many times. When I started this podcast, I was like, this is it. No one's ever going to tell me to shut up anymore.
Isn't that lovely?
It's amazing. Oh. It's great. And
your own radio show. You can talk about whatever to whoever you want.
Absolutely. And so, but in my relationship, I have had to learn not to talk too much and be, ask questions and so on. So there are times when you do want to minimize the amount of talking you do, otherwise you might drive the other person mental. But
my husband often likens me to a little radio that sort of goes on in the background, and I tend to talk a lot as well. And I said to him when I was getting into public speaking and sharing what I've written about, he goes, "What do you mean a public speaker?" I said, "I'm going to be paid to be me and talk a lot." And he laughed, and I go, "Well, what's wrong with aspirations like that? Nothing. That's what you're meant to be doing, and it's not supposed to be hard. I'm supposed to have time to spend half a day a week with horses, sit in the sun and have a coffee while stroking my cat, and not being stuck in an office for 9 to 7 where I'm dictated when I'm supposed to be on and when I'm supposed to be off." And I think for women, we are cyclical beings, and anyone who's married out there and has a woman that goes through hormonal shifts, you would all relate to that. We're designed that way. We're just pretending that doesn't exist, and this is why my personal experience focuses on women in particular, because we're pretending to be man in a man's world, and people say, "Oh, you're a bit feminist." I go, "Actually, I'm not feminist. I'm a feminine activist." It's very different, because I think the feminists of old, while they've paved the way for a lot of things we now take for granted, they're also taken a little of that femininity away. You can be all the things you want to be. You don't have to choose sides. And I think this is where being grounded and holistic in your approach and understanding your energetics is really powerful. And we're not doing that enough.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell us a bit about this book that you've written.
This is my story of my burnout and my journey of understanding what it means to come back to who you are. So that book is talking about how I came to burnout to the point that I gone down the hill, not hearing the signs, not listening to the lessons. I was so stressed. I did have anxiety, depression, adrenal fatigue, which 15 years ago wasn't as widely talked about or educated about than it is today. And sadly, in that state, my body did not deem it safe enough to carry a pregnancy to full term. So I have gone through 5 pregnancy losses.
Wow.
while I still kept telling myself that that was just something to get over and carry on and ignore. And in those moments, there were lessons that needed to be written. And I always said, one day I'll write the book. And the irony is that this happened all in a publishing company that I was a general manager for. And I was resistant to go back with anything to do with publishing. And when I started writing the book, being very cocky, that's easy. I know everything there's about publishing. But when you actually have to dig deep and share some of the really vulnerable parts, that is not for the faint of heart, which is why I now help others write books of that fashion, because you can follow a spreadsheet, you can make the writing time every Friday at 11 o'clock, and I promise you, when you want to write your personal stuff, you're staring at the screen and nothing is going to come through, because your nervous system is trying to keep you safe from going to some of those not so nice parts of your life. And then you go, who would want to read it? You know, that imposter knocks on the door. How much is too much? Are people going to be upset if I mention X, Y, Z? So we talk ourselves out of writing books like that. And then we're going to go and do a safe book, which is about our business, about lessons, and then it just reads boring and it never connects you with the audience or that woman who is hiding at the restroom at work because there's a baby shower or whatever they may be going through. And by sharing that, I realized I wanted to make a difference in just one woman's life. And that's what helped me get through writing it. And rewilding is basically you returning yourself to a natural state. And it's often something used in conservation, but corporate rewilding means that as a woman, you can be a woman entering the space and all the structures without hanging your femininity up with it. And that's quite an unpacking process, because we've so conditioned in acting a certain way, you know, the power suit, the corner office. And like you said, validation doesn't come from within. It comes from the next promotion, the big client I landed, the mention at the company Christmas function, those things. And I was no different. Yeah. But it broke me.
Yeah, we're always looking for validation from outside, but really all we need to do is
there is a different way.
Yeah, and I'm, for me, back in 2021, I was listening to Jay Shetty's on Purpose podcast, and I was seeking validation from my general manager at the time, because I was doing a really great job and I wasn't getting any feedback. And Jay Shetty said, "You don't need validation from anyone else except for yourself."
Powerful. And
that was a game changer for me. That just changed my life, because I just went, wow, what am I doing? I'm actually looking for someone else to tell me I've done a good job. But what if I just tell myself that I've done a great job?
Yeah.
And from that day, I just did that. I mean, I've always backed myself and believed myself, but I think because I never really grew up with my dad or my mum and never had that validation from them, I was always seeking validation, even in relationships, or work. And I've had to go through a lot of healing. And I haven't written my book yet, but I've written a chapter which was very vulnerable. And I remember when I was talking about this yesterday or the day before yesterday at a dinner, and my girlfriend was with me, and I said, when I started dating her, I said, I sent her the PDF, and I said, I want you to read this chapter. It's all about my trauma and my childhood. And after reading this, if you still want to go out with me, then let's do that. But I want you to read this first. And that's quite a bit of vulnerability to someone you've just met, to hand them a PDF and say, read these 4,187 words of me talking about my trauma and how I've gone through in my life. And she said, what you went through, no child should ever have to go through. But 11 months later, we're still together, and we're looking at moving in soon together. And first time in a very, very long time that I've met someone that actually has helped me and supported me to heal myself. And I've done the work, but she's been there to just be compassionate and empathetic and just listen and be able to give me time to work through things, you know. So
it's
yeah,
beautiful,
so
and
grateful.
I think it's a testament to when you have that courage and you've, like you said, you've done the work. It is revealing your purpose as you go along, because by being so grounded that you don't seek validation, because it resonates. I was the same. I grew up feeling deeply not good enough, and you feel like you want to be the show pony and you want to have the praise, and especially at work, and you feel like if you're not, it's not given, because it's a leadership skill to actually foster that and do that, and unfortunately. In the corporate ranks, the higher you get, the less likely is that you're actually getting any of that, because you've self-led a lot. And that within itself takes courage and groundedness. So I think seeking that is a very natural human condition, because it goes back to what we experienced in childhood, and that's where we have that in common. But it can set us up for a disaster if we are constantly striving for something, because we then feel like we have to earn even more respect or work even harder to get that. And I think that's where burnout is, that participation again. Which stories and which boundaries have you not set for yourself? Where are you playing the victim rather than being grounded? And that's an uncomfortable discussion to have with clients, but one that holds the deepest breakthroughs, because I really love taking clients down into this real raw honesty, which I call often your shadow. Because if you can honestly admit to yourself, hey, this was my own, not fault, but I participated in it, it's not everyone else's fault, then we can make some changes. For me, it was the realization that even though I was asking myself, why does this keep happening? Why is there pregnancy loss after pregnancy loss? I'm healthy, I'm young, all the things. It's the one thing I couldn't control. And I had to admit that the lifestyle and the way I was working and living at the time contributed to the fact that my body didn't deem it safe. It was a hard pill to swallow at the time, not easy. But once that sunk in, I could make the change needed to not go back to that lifestyle ever again.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, totally. Yeah. Yeah, for me, like going through those restructures, going through the relationship breakups, every one of those situations took me back to my 7-year-old self in an ashram in India in the boarding school, which was crossed between army and prison effectively. Every one of those instances kept taking me back there. Beginning of 2024, I had to sit through 12 weeks in my discomfort and in my shadow and do the work.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, it was tough, but coming out the other end, just like you're reborn, like a totally different person.
I call it a chrysalis, because you dissolve your old being, and you're no longer a caterpillar, and you come out the other way, and you realize, wow, this is different. You can't straight away fly, but you go, hang on a minute, I've got wings. I don't have to be a caterpillar. It takes some time to grow into this new being.
Yeah.
But the beauty of having gone through that is that you can now act from the new normal.
Yeah.
And you don't have to go ricochet back. You don't have to be triggered so much by things. You have that awareness to know why this is happening, why you're reacting. It doesn't mean you're never going to react to things.
Exactly. Yeah.
But you have a whole different mindset about it.
Exactly.
And you can move forward differently. And because you've told it, either in a book or on a podcast or in other places, on a stage, you become, invincible is probably the wrong word, but you become so grounded in being able to tell the story for the sake of others. It's not about your path or your story anymore. It is there to make a difference in other people's lives.
Yeah.
And that's where the fear dissolves. You have courage to do other things. I never thought I'd be sitting on a podcast or standing on stages sharing some of those. But because I've walked through that fear that, oh my goodness, the book's coming out, every person can read about what I've gone through. You sit with that discomfort, and then you come through, I call it a golden portal when you have your book come out, to go, well, what could possibly happen now? Like, you can throw anything at me and I'd be fine. I be fine. And that is a beautiful place to be. And now you can operate and take on opportunities that you would have said no to because you think in your mind you're still the caterpillar.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, totally. Yeah. Let's talk about the Realign framework. So can you explain what that framework is and how it assists women in finding their authentic paths?
The Realign framework is basically the 10 years that I've spent with various modalities and inner work to go and redefine and find myself again. So I take women through that process, and it literally looks at every part of your subconscious. And you mentioned you were 7, I was 6 when something was that I've gone through. So it's often things that happen in our formative years where we do not realize and make the connection with that's how we show up. I'm an absolute fascinated by epigenetics and how our intercultural conditioning and our upbringing forms our mindset. And it's not just the immediate family, it does go down generations depending on what lineage you have. And people don't realize that, I would say, all of the things that the way we show up in our adulthood are somehow related to the stories that we hold. So Realign is to reflect, because you need to actually go inward, be willing to go, I know something is off, I can't put my finger on it, but I don't want to live like this anymore. So that is that point where people go, I really want to change. Then we go into exposing what is lying beneath the surface. What is the stuff we don't want to admit to ourselves? And where do we need to be brutally honest, and where do we often need somebody to guide us to that? And that's important because we shy away from the hard stuff or the uncomfortable stuff. And then we can accept them. Acceptance is important because we can put a line in the sand and say, okay, I understand all of these things, but now I'm ready to really make a change. And I'm willing to do that, because within that is the liberation, where we can free ourselves from this negative victimhood mentality where everything is happening to us rather than us changing the trajectory. Because if I constantly believe tomorrow I'm going to have a rock fall on my head when I walk down the road, you can make yourself so focused on what could go wrong, you're missing out on all the opportunities where things can go right, and you're actually in the driver's seat. And that was a big understanding for me. And then you can integrate what you've learned through this process by understanding your patterns. You hone in on the awareness so you don't react to triggers. Because triggers are beautiful little nuggets where we are being shown that we're out of alignment. And that's, people don't realize that when we snap or we do things, we often don't know how to get out of the loop. It's like that record that just keeps going in the same way. And it's a beautiful thing once we liberating ourselves, and then we can become grounded in that whole persona, and with all the good things and the bad things that makes us who we are. And then I send them away with great things where you can nurture. How do you make sure that you're not ricocheting back into some of those things? So I do this in small groups, but I also do this one-on-one, because I often have clients that have, on closer inspection and in that reflection, they have such trauma that they may have not spoken about it. They may have pushed it down. And I've done a lot of education on myself and learned the right ways, trauma-informed coaching. I am a certified life coach. I've done a lot with past life regressions, rapid transformation therapy. So I understand not to push somebody to go there, but to create that safe space, which is my superpower, to go, look, I've gone through something really traumatic myself. It is safe for you to open up, to actually let these things come to the surface so you can redefine them and change them, because your pain of holding on to that is preventing you from showing up in your life and in your business in a way that you're not playing full out. And this is the framework that I've learned. And a lot of women go, look, I have no idea where to start. And I can go, well, I've been through this, and I do not want you to spend a decade trying to go from A to B. I wouldn't have done this without help myself, and this is where I can now give back with especially topics that I've gone through myself to go, I have got your back. It is safe for you to speak about that, and this is why I love diving into these things with clients and understanding that this is not about me anymore, my story, but it has shown if I can go from this place to where I am today, then that is possible for you too. So I'd like to liken myself to a living, breathing permission slip to enable you to go and do something different and learn why you act a certain way.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I love it. I could do it all day, every day.
Yeah. What are the three main pillars of the framework?
The honesty, the shadow part, really looking at your lessons and seeing them as lessons and as the silver lining, not as something that needs to be avoided. And the third one would be the willingness to show up perfectly imperfect, because you're never going to fix yourself, neither can I fix somebody. You have to have a willingness to go out and do you, screw up and get back up and become unapologetic. It takes courage. And it's something that through my martial arts journey, being a black belt and being told as a child you're not sporty enough, you're not this enough, you're not that, it is a mindset thing. And if I can earn a black belt and go through all the things and go through losing 5 pregnancies and still today doing the things I do, then so can you. And I'm not for everybody. I have certain things that I would possibly not work with clients on because it's not my area of expertise. But there is a lot of others who say, wow, when I read your book, I felt like you're talking to me. You're looking inside of me. And every time I go into networking spaces, which are very much often in that old paradigm, women have to compete one with each other and they don't want to collaborate and network in a nice way. It feels off-putting to me. But I also look at these spaces going, wow, I used to be one of those. I wasn't a very nice boss on some occasions. Is that reflection again on myself. So think of it as you stepping out of a box and onto a spiral. The journey is really never finished. But if you never step out of the box, then you don't know how wide and how high that spiral might take you. That's the best way of how I normally explain the process. It's not finished where you go, okay, we've done the program now, I'm done. No. And you would relate to that. There's always more that you can learn in another layer where you go, oh, didn't I deal with this in myself? Why is this coming up? You go, oh, here we go again. There's another round.
It's like an onion, isn't it? You just got to keep peeling the layers off until you... And you never really get there until... No. There's always something that's going to pop up.
I know.
Yeah, there's always something that's going to pop up, and you've just got to be aware. And what I've learned is to accept what happened, acknowledge it, let it go, and then move forward. And you know, for me, moving forward is I'm successful because I'm not stagnant. And what I've also learned is that fear, which does hold us back, is actually our friend.
It is.
Fear is actually guiding us and telling us, hey, you know, and then we have a choice that we listen or we retreat, you know, and move forward. So now I would say that I'm living a limitless and a fearless life. Yeah. You know, there's always going to be fears come up, but you just got to go, okay. Doesn't
it feel much better?
Yeah.
For me, the fear, I always tell myself, fear is where the growth is.
Yeah.
Because once you step through it, it's never as scary. And there's always something that you wouldn't have gotten to that level. It's a bit like a Super Mario game, those old enough to remember that, where you have another level you haven't unlocked yet.
Yeah.
And you have to go through something to get there. And often it's this, and I think if you look at fear, someone said if your body reacts to fear, you change the breathing pattern behind it and it turns into excitement.
It does.
And by reframing that, it becomes a completely different outlook on how you approach things. And then at the end you go, wow, that was great, let's do that again. Instead of just shriveling up in the corner going, I can't.
I mean, a good example is my daughter, she's 11, and I remember when she was younger, and I'd take her to the playground, and I would say, "Go on the monkey bars," and she goes, "Oh, I can't do that. It's scary." I'm like, "No, just put your or a slide or something. Put your foot over here and do this and do that," and she'd go, "Oh," and then she'd try it, and then she'd go, "Yay, I did it," and then she'd go and do it again.
Yeah.
And so I taught her that, like, you just give it a go, and if it doesn't work, try again.
Yeah.
Keep trying until it's no longer a problem, right? And so, yeah, that's the way I feel like, And, outside your comfort zone is the fear zone.
Yeah.
And then if you can get past that, then that's where there's other zones and the growth zone, right? So I love what Rob Dial from the Mindset Mentor says, that is that your dreams go to die in your comfort zone.
Yes. Yeah.
And that should be scary enough to then get you out of that comfort zone into the fear zone, right?
It's limitless potential that lies behind the doors.
Yeah.
And I always, my quote that hangs over my desk is never quit your daydream, because it is your subconscious telling you what purpose you're following in life. And going back to what I really dreamed of as a child gives me the greatest joy now, that I've given myself permission to actually go and entertain them. I said, well, I've said I'm going to have a horse this year, I'm going to do certain things, and people go, oh, really? How? I said, I don't know how yet, but I will.
Yeah.
So I'm acting in that space where I know I'm already there.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of time. It's about to happen.
Yeah. The other thing I do is I have like this, so whether it's goals or your purpose, right? I've got a purpose, there's an impact that I want to create in this world.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that is that's what's pulling me towards it, right? I'm a magnet, I'm getting magnetized to it. So if I want to achieve that, if I want to get to there and be able to create an impact in the world, I need to be able to contain it.
Yeah.
And for me to be able to contain that, I have to grow. And yes, there's going to be some fear. I mean, if you look at your life up until now, there's a lot of things that we've been fearful of, but we've overcome them and we've got past them.
Yes.
So the way to do it is to take small steps and just take one step at it, and then your brain goes, oh, that wasn't too bad.
Mm-hmm.
Take another step. That wasn't too bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's how you train your subconscious mind, that because your conscious mind is then taking control and you're moving forward.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I always say, if you think you can't change, what is the cost of not changing?
It's huge.
And that's an interesting one, because we don't often look at it that way.
No.
And I paid a high price for what I've gone through and had made peace with it. And I never thought that I could talk about some of the things that I do and have without breaking into tears or still being hesitant of going there. Because I realized that it's been part of my journey and I had to go through it. Otherwise I wouldn't be sitting here, that book wouldn't be standing on that table. And you give yourself grace.
Yeah.
And you're never too late.
No.
You're always at the right time in the right place. That's the way I frame my own mindset in various shapes.
We talked about vulnerability before. How has embracing vulnerability shaped your leadership style with your work with your clients?
You're leading from a place of compassion. Because if I pretend that I've not gone through any of the things or would try and hide some of them, I would only show up as half of who I am. And I think for women in particular, we need to feel safe before we open up to somebody. And if we think that that person is sitting on a pedestal or has all her stuff together and is flawless and all those things, we become inhibited, and it doesn't make it very fruitful to see some of the things that can happen when you meet at the same level. And I think you can understand a lot deeper what someone's feelings are when you've been there yourself and you're not afraid to share your own experiences, because there's a trust that is being built. And this is part of being a space holder that can hold your emotion, it can hold your story, without giving advice or feedback. You just holding it.
Yeah.
You're just witnessing it. You're just being present. And
Yeah.
that is a skill that is not easy. And women tend to want to fix and nurture. I hold a lot of spaces with women, and the ground rules of being in circle and being in a sharing situation where we're not jumping to want to help and fix, that is harder than you think, to just sit back and sit with the discomfort, because what is landing on you being nurturing and compassionate, which we are as women, designed that way, it is not easy to take on board. And then what is the I guess the energetic hygiene to let some of that stuff I've witnessed go. So for me, I am very mindful of that myself. When I come out of really heavy coaching sessions, I take time to ground, to be out, to make sure I'm not carrying the energetics. And I look at it not just from what goes through my head, because I understand when you listen to information, even if you watch the news before you go to sleep, depending on what pictures come to you, you might think you're desensitized to some of the stuff, but actually you're not. It still is held, and The Body Keeps the Score is one of my favorite books. If you haven't come across that will blow your mind. We are multidimensional beings. We are body, mind, and spirit. And I think the exciting thing is, if you have a business and it's your own, you can live from that place. You can lead from that place, and you can do business that time.
Exactly.
And people love that, but they also try and judge you just a little bit, because I think you're showing them what's possible, and they're not quite honest that they actually want just that.
Yeah.
And I think that's when you look at the friction that is created by you reacting to somebody who is carefree. Like, I changed my title on my business card from founder of the Fempreneur Pathfinder to unapologetic wild woman and possibility agent, just because I wanted to.
Yeah.
And people look at the card. It's a great conversation starter.
Yeah.
But people go,
what does that mean?
Well, that's not a title. And I go, yes. And if you spend any time with me, you know that I am who I am. What you see is what you get. If I'm not your cup of tea, no hard feelings. And that's taken me a while to really embody. And I think that's what makes you magnetic for not chasing, and the right people just show up in your life, and you're having the greatest conversation, the greatest clients.
Oh, yeah.
And you really love doing business that way.
Yeah, absolutely. So what advice would you give to women who are struggling with showing their vulnerability and their vulnerable side at work?
I would say go and really let yourself go down that road, because you are bottling up so many things that you're holding, and you actually know it if you take time long enough without distraction and being still. It's never too late to tap into that, and whether you're 30, 40, 50 or older, you can change and reframe what you carry, and you can get to a place where you barely recognize the old version of yourself. So it's never too late.
Thank you for sharing that. So lastly, I want to talk a little bit about feminine leadership. How do you define feminine leadership, and why do you believe that it's essential in today's work environment?
I think feminine leadership comes from a place of being more soft and being more intuitive and a lot more heart and compassion. We are also, I think, really good at handling crisis situations and deflecting potential blow-ups in business. And I think if we would allow ourselves to be vulnerable and to act from that place without trying to emulate the men around us, because let's face it, we're still in the minority, and not so much in New Zealand, but in certainly Germany and other places. The air doesn't necessarily get thinner the higher you get. You can be all of who you are. And I think if also maybe the male-dominated leadership would welcome and give us an opportunity to show those qualities without feeling threatened, for a better word, we would have much more harmonious teams, especially leadership teams, because we have got a workforce that is female and male, and we need as much feminine leaders as we need male leaders, and that equality, we're still quite a little while away. And women, I think, oppose those rigid rules onto themselves harsher than often their peers or even the management, because men don't really think about whether they can or cannot say anything. They act from a different place of conditioning when you look at history. So I think women need to have the courage to go there and not necessarily wondering, oh, then I'm not going to get promoted, I'm going to get overseen and all that. And be around other women. Think of less competing. Collaboration is the new domination is one of my favorite quotes. So I think that it's happening, but not as much as we really should. And is it really coming from a place of lived desire, or is it coming from pretending to be something?
So what are some practical steps that women can take to embody the style of leadership in their own lives?
I guess the willingness to look at their position and their workload not from a lens of just leadership, but also who am I as a person and how am I showing up out of alignment. I used to probably be the very dominating push command from the top kind of leader, because I was acting from what I call the wounded feminine, because I felt like I had to be hard-nosed. And you can invite participation, you don't have to force feed that down. So I think the openness of looking at yourself as a spiritual or holistic leader, and not just, I'm the general manager, here's my job description, here are the things I do. And that takes, again, that vulnerability piece plays a part, the honesty, and asking for really honest feedback and not being afraid of what my team or my peers may see, and not feeling threatened by criticism, and really seeing it as an opportunity to grow. And that takes a skill. And if we're wondering whether we're good enough, or we think, well, I have the title and you don't get to tell me what's wrong with me. Think of it a little bit more soft.
And this world at the moment is very masculine, right?
Oh yes, it is.
Because there's a lot of structure and so on. Like there needs to be a more conscious effort of being more empathetic and vulnerability and so on. What are your thoughts on that? Like, do you feel like we're moving towards a little bit more femininity there? So how do you feel we are as a human race at the moment?
I think when you turn on the news, you kind of go, oh my goodness, what is going on? So I think there are some old structures coming up for, I guess, the last hooray, where this is so toxic and so distorted that we don't think that can be any different way. And people who are afraid, who haven't looked at whatever their part is that they're playing, they are just following something and then feeling like they don't have a choice, or they can't be a different way. And yes, we have duality, but I think we are far cry away from what it could be. But there's definitely a lot of more female entrepreneurs rising, because they're leaving corporate because they feel like they can't be all of who they are. We are mothers, we are daughters, we're partners, we're wives. Who says that we can't do our best work doing just 3 hours in the morning and then enjoy being with the children? Certain things are just part of what we like to do and who we are. We're not really having that choice or the freedom to design a life that honors all of those things. And imagine what life would be like if we can go into an office where we don't have to clock in for 8 hours. We're not judged on whether we're sitting in an office for 8 hours, but judged by the outcome of our work, without being under controlling influences all the time. And the big one for the women would be, you are cyclical beings again. It's been my biggest learning curve. So you're not, you can't do the same day in, day out, because by being under our hormonal influences, we are cyclical. So there's parts of the month, again, the men here in the audience would recognize that, we are not the same people. And if you look at the moon, she's full, she's half, she's gone. We're the same. Imagine if you could actually honor your energetic every month. And that's been my biggest learning curve, the way I design my week and my structure. And even though I'm at a point where I'm not under the hormones the way I used to in my childbearing years, I have other hormonal things like menopause. don't try and push these things down. Honor that. And if you feel like you want to crawl under a rock and have chocolate, then allow yourself to be that. Or if you feel like you're under the weather, don't drag yourself to an office because you feel like you're doing anyone a favor. I think that is this pushing and performing part. Allow yourself to be sick, to be not okay for a day, and then come back swinging. So we're a far cry away from allowing some of these things naturally to perhaps be a bit more prevalent in businesses, because it's all about the bottom line and performance. But getting to that point, does it have to be that linear and that structured? That's my big question mark.
Yeah, well, you were talking about how, like, being able to work a few hours in the morning and so on, as long as it's the output. And with the shift coming with the rise of AI and automation and all that, I think that's going to completely shift how things are happening right now, right? Because a lot of those GMs and managers and stuff who have been, used to telling people what to do and this and that, all of a sudden it's going to completely change the way businesses work and people work going forward.
I would love to do Realign think tanks for the top brass in various companies, because I think AI is not here to, yes, it will replace some jobs.
Some jobs, yeah.
But it still will create others. Yeah. And it's again, how do you perceive the AI? Is it a threat, or is it something you embrace and see the positive elements of it? It comes down to a personal choice and how you perceive it. And your life will be affected by that depending on what that choice looks like. I wouldn't say I'm an immediate early adopter of everything, but once I understand and see the freedom it gives me in other places and that it doesn't take my voice away, my brain and my human connection is still there. And I think the more we have AI, I think we crave the human person and the human authenticity even more. And that will then come at a premium, because if you want to speak to me in person on a coaching call, that becomes a very different thing than some of the other things that may be self-led, or the information that I put in a written or spoken form, and people have that choice. So yes, some of it can be terrifying, and I'm old enough to remember Terminator, and it's the computers are taking over. There is some truth in how that may be used, and I'm sure there's stuff that we don't see. But do I let that fear stifle me? No, I choose to look at it as a positive way and going, wow, imagine I can take this task away. There's certain things I'm really good at, but there's also things that I'm not very good at. And as a solopreneur, when you first start a business, you all of the things. Yeah. How exhilarating is it to be able to take some of those tasks and have them done for you?
Exactly.
Why do you have to? I think that martyrdom will fall away. Yeah. And we'll feel like we can create some of that flow, because we're not designed to sit in a box for 8 hours a day.
Yeah, I was thinking about this the other day, and I was like, okay, well, we have been, for this industrial revolution, this age, we've been, we go to work and we do tasks.
Correct.
Right? And now AI can do tasks. And so I was thinking about this and going, we've been living like robots.
We have. It was designed that way.
Yeah.
To make us productive.
Exactly.
Yep.
And now we've now got the opportunity to outsource these things to AI and be able to do more things that we love and spend time with people that we love.
I think for the creative mind, which is our brain, it does expand if you make it do new things.
Exactly.
Applied neuroscience is a fascinating topic that I like to read about, and your brain does wonderful things if you let it, if you allow it.
And your brain can only handle 40 bits of information, but it goes processes millions of bits of information. But it's like if you've got that limitation of what your brain can retain at that given time, then imagine if you could just get rid of all that stuff.
I know.
And have more space in your brain to be able to do critical thinking and more things that you want to create, become the creative, start using the creative brain, right? So I think it's a great move going forward.
I think it unlocks the part of where we can become not just the body, but we can become the mind and the spirit, because we're creating space for the mind and the spirit to be able to have a place where it's integrated in daily life and into business, because I can dream up a whole lot of different things because I have the time. I have the freedom to just be. And then as an embodiment coach, you embody, you're in your body. You can feel what is going on. You can say, well, is this good for my body or is it not? And from a burnout point of view, why not embrace it? Imagine the things we can do without burning out.
Tina, we are now at the quickfire questions. So there are 6 questions, and you can answer these questions in a single word or a short sentence. And the first question is, what is your definition of success, and has that definition changed for you over time?
My definition of success is freedom, the level of freedom, and it definitely has changed.
Who's been your greatest inspiration and why?
Oh, okay. Now, the first person that pops into mind would be Jason Momoa. Not just because he's like a kid in a candy store living out his biggest dreams from a place of complete embodiment, and the success just followed him and giving him more things. That's one. And if I go back further, it would be Richard Branson. He's got one of my favorite quotes, "Screw it, let's do it."
Yeah.
I love him.
I
absolutely am fascinated by the man's life.
Yeah, I like that too. What is something that you believe that others may disagree with?
That you can do whatever you want.
That's been my, all through childhood.
Yep.
I can do anything
You
I
can't
want.
possibly go to Tahiti. I was in Tahiti 2000.
Yeah.
So things like that.
Yeah. If you could go back and give your younger self a piece of advice, what would it be?
Stop thinking about what other people think of you.
What's one message you'd like to share with the world?
Go after your dreams unapologetically.
And what does it mean to you to be a champion and have a champion mindset?
That I champion myself before I try and be the champion for others. And a champion doesn't put me on a pedestal or sets me apart from others. It makes me an advocate for leading by example.
Nice. Awesome. Thank you for joining us today, Tina. It's been an amazing conversation. I enjoy conversations like this, and
Me
I
too.
really
Thank you for having me.
appreciate you. Yeah. And, like you've unpacked the journey of redefining success and embracing the wild executive mindset. Remember, each step taken towards aligning your true self is a step towards more fulfilling life and leadership style. Don't forget to check out Tina's book, which is Corporate Rewilding,
Yes.
A Journey Back to Self. Also, where else can they find you?
They can find me on Instagram, _fempreneur, and that's FEMME. On LinkedIn, Tina K. Kailea, or you can check me out at fempreneurpathfinder.com.
Awesome. Until then, keep shining, and remember that you can do anything that you want, because if someone else has done it, then there's no reason why you can't. And I just want to say, lastly, you are loved, you are worthy. Champion your life, champion your greatness, and have an amazing day.
Thank you so much.